All right, so we just wrote some Python to create a form to work with ArcGIS. One quick thing just to add to that, we don't even need Arc scripts anymore, right? You just write a form and we'll just start talking directly to ArcGIS, and I think that's really cool. Well, what we're going to do next is now migrate this over to Postgres. So we'll start using more open source again. Now, in this case, I don't have that Richland data in Postgres, and to be quite honest, I don't want to upload it. We've been working with the Tompkins parcels and the flood zones, so why don't we return to that again? But one of the things I did here, leave here for posterity, was set up the Richland environment and find schools that are within specified distances, right? That's not what we're doing, but I just wanted to show you that it's the same code. I just basically took that old script that we just finished writing and made a few little changes. So here again, we got PsychoPG and form layout. So let's save that real quick. And then remember that old connector object. So I'm just connecting to Postgres to the Tompkins database. Remember, I'll use 5433. You may be using 5432. Right, so I don't know which port you use. Just make sure you have that correct, and you've worked on this already earlier in the lectures, so you should be good there. We connect to the cursor. Now remember what we did in the last lecture. We wanted to get all the different company names, right, or the facility names. Well, in this case, I want to do the same thing for flood zone. So I'm going to issue an SQL statement, select distinct zone from flood zones, and we execute that. And now I'm going to create another list, and this one's called My Names. That's what it was called in the last one. I append the first record, which is a 0, and then I get the results of this query, which is going to give me all the distinct and unique names of the flood zones. Then, as I cycle through that, I'm going to append that name, and that's it. I'm going to set the distance to 0, and what I'm going to do too is sort the names. Actually, before I do that, let's not sort them for now. Let's just run this. And here's my data list. This looks almost exactly like what we saw before. And again, I just want you to see this. We're just going to keep doing this all the time. I want a number. I want a string. Doesn't matter, right? We now kind of know how to do that. So here's my little title. Here's a little space that I'll skip. And then here's another title saying enter the data below. So distance in meters. You could say distance in meters from the flood zone. From flood zone. How about that, right? And that, I'm going to pass it dist. Okay, so that's my default. Then select the flood zone. That's going to get my names. Now remember, my names is going to give me all the unique flood zones. This is exactly what we did earlier. We then run the thing, and I'm going to get a list of my answers. And we'll go back and we'll look at what that list says. Now, here's the interesting thing. No more make feature layers, no more select, all this stuff, right? It says select feature by attribute, select feature by location. None of that has to happen. I just need one query, and that's the beauty of when I've talked about SQL before in my other class in SQL, is I'm just saying select the sum of the assessment, and we're going to return that as money from the parcels and the flood zones where the zone is equal to, and here's again a little bit more of that gymnastics that I had to issue before, getting the list, the value from our list of the different flood zones that we have in our list, and keep going, and it's within that, or the TC parcel geom is within the flood zones geom based on a certain distance. Now I could have done st intersect as well, but I just wanted to be a little more creative and issue the command for doing the SD within, so we can change the distances, and also it shows you how to add another variable to our form. Here I'm just printing out the SQL. This is a way for me to error check things. I issue it, and then I cycle through, and really there's only one record, and then we're going to print that out. So let's run this really quickly. Run the module. We'll save it. There it is. So again, what's the distance? We can do 0. And look, it's X500, AE, and A. This is where, let's not run it right now. Let's come back in here and then say my names dot sort. Now let's run it. There we go. And now it starts with A, AE, and X500. So again, you just see we can just throw all kinds of different Python into here in order to get a little more clever with our results. So again, we'll make it 0 and we'll choose the AE flood zone. We'll issue that. And let's see what, here comes our answer. And I wanted to show you this, so it returned nothing. Why? Well, that's why I printed this out. Remember I said I printed out for error checking. So here's an error that I built in. Zone is equal to 1. That doesn't look right. My list, 0 and 1. So that's the distance, right? 0 is my distance, because that's what I had asked for. 1 is the record in my names. So let's type my names 1. And that's the A. Oh, it's my names, because remember we have the 0 is 2. That's the AE. So I'm going to go back in here and make this change. And here I just practiced it. So my names is my list 1, and actually let's just do my list. My list 1 again is that number 1, and then what I'm going to do is add a 1 to it. So let's copy this, and let's come back into our code, and let's do this. We're going to turn that into a string. So let's run this again. There we go. Let's choose the AE flood zone, and now it's issuing it. So this is what the query is, where the zone is equal to AE, and the parcels are within the flood zones, and here's our value. So about $1.1 billion, right, within the AE flood zone. And again, you can see how these are all kind of interacting with one another. Here's the my list, and again, it gives me that first record, which was 0. I'm going to do that again. Let's run the module, and we'll do AE flood zone again. But what I want to do instead of 0 is let's make it 100. So we'll run that. And there we go. So we've got 4.8 billion. And let me just type my list. So there you again, the first record we asked for was an integer, and that's what we got. The next record we asked for is the location of the element. But for whatever reason, form layout does require us to pad that first record with a 0. So that's what I did here, and that's why we add the extra 1. Well, I want to do one other thing. Let's go to the Postgres part 2 and open this up. So this is pretty much the same as before. Let's get this to extend. And here, import cyclepg2, and I don't have to issue 2 import statements. Import both of them. Same as before, right? So select the distinct. I'm getting all my flood zones. Very good. And here I've actually typed in things like find schools. Again, I can say find parcels near flood zones, find parcel values, something like that. Enter data, enter distance in meters, enter the zone. So this is all the same. Find TRI facilities. No, we don't want to say that. We want to say, and again, I just show you this because it's the same code as earlier. So now it's going to be find or sum the parcel values near a flood zone. That's perfect. Okay. So now I'm going to get the sum of the assessment and the prop class. Now things are a little dicier because I'm getting 2 elements. And again, where, and we've got our list again as similar as before. And I've introduced one additional little error in here that I want to show you. So again, where the zone is equal to that, and it's within, and we can scroll down, and we group it by the property class. And then when we issue this, I'm going to print that SQL again so we can see what it looks like, and we'll execute it. And now we're going to print out both the property class, right? J is 0 now because I'm bringing 2, and then 1, which is the sum of the assessment. But watch this first error that we get. Let me run this. give us that. It says X500 index is invalid, right? So the only ones I'm able to see are AE and A. So I'm going to cancel that. And we come back in here, and I'm going to have to type my names dot append, and we'll put a 0 in there. Now let's run it. And the error goes away. And notice here I'm also printing out each of them just to double check. And there we have it. And again, I can also come back in here when it's done and say my names dot sort. And we'll run this. Here we go. And now I've got AE 0. Sure, that's fine. And then let's run this. And now you can see the SQL that we're using. So I'm getting the sum of the assessment and the property class where the zone, and here we have an error again, zone equal to 1. That's not what we want. So we're going to get nothing to return. So let's come back in. And again, how do I fix this? Well, the way I fix it is I go back into my old code from before where zone is equal to. Let's do this. Copy that. And that's where it's really nice to be able to print this out. So the question is, did I get this? Did I do this correctly? And we're gonna find out in just a second. So let's run this. And we have 0. Let's choose our AE again. And we'll run it. Where zone is equal to AE. So we did get that right. So eventually we can come back in here and we can comment out this SQL. Oh, not the SQL, the print statement in order to get this to work. And there it is. So that's our value for agricultural land, commercial, community services, forest, industrial, public services, and so on. So with this, you should be able to create some really nice, simple, basic forms to interact with your users and solve spatial problems. And again, be creative, right? Use that geocoder object if you want to, right? Use some QGIS, right? Anything you want to use. Start thinking about things that you want to bring in and begin to implement it inside the GIS and have a much more robust type of an application. And this, again, a great thing you can show to people if you ever go on an interview. Pop up your laptop and say, here's a form that I built, and don't be afraid to have one of those more advanced ones that have all the different tabs. You'll be able to do it, but it will take a lot of hacking and it will take a lot of printing out statements to see where things went wrong. And that's kind of why I left these in here to show you that that's what I have to go through on a regular basis.